Our next presenter is Anya Gavrylko. She's a double major in environmental studies and community environment and planning. Anya has really immersed herself in justice work while she's been here at the university, primarily in food justice. She was both the ASUW Student Food Co-op co-manager and also within the city of Seattle, an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. Today, she's going to be talking about environmental justice without environmental gentrification. She's going to explain to us what environmental gentrification is. Her host is Lake City Collective, where she worked with Cesar Garcia, and her faculty advisor from here on campus is Professor Ken Yoakum in the Department of Landscape Architecture. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Anya.
Increasing access to green space in urban areas that have been historically underinvested in due to structural racism and classism in urban planning is an important form of environmental justice work. However, this can at times have unintended consequences, as seen here with the installation of the 606 Park in Chicago. Green space is an amenity that improves the quality of life. Increasing such amenities in vulnerable areas that are often non-white, low-income, can catalyze and exacerbate gentrification and resulting displacement. Gentrification is the change of a neighborhood's character associated with increased affluence, while displacement is when people have to move against their will. Unfortunately, increasing access to green space can contribute to gentrification and displacement. This is known as environmental gentrification. This tension brought me to my research question. What are the best practices to increase access to green space in historically underinvested areas without contributing to gentrification and displacement in those neighborhoods? The inspiration for this research question came from my internship with Lake City Collective. I've been an environmental justice intern at Lake City Collective since September of 2020. One of the most significant projects that I worked on is their Little Brook Park redesign project. Little Brook Park is the only green space in the Little Brook neighborhood, which is a dense, diverse, renter-majority community. The park is not meeting the needs of the community, so therefore it is undergoing a park redesign process led by the community. Next, we will see an image of the final design, which was made by Partners Site Workshop, based on feedback from several community-led workshops, facilitated by Lake City Collective over Zoom, with several translations. My work was to help financially fund this project by applying to grants. Although this redesign is exciting, it has brought up concerns from community members and designers of causing gentrification and displacement. As you can see, Little Brook Park is located in an area that is of high risk of displacement, according to the Office of Planning and Community Development. My hope was to do research that would help Lake City Collective implement this park design without having to worry about contributing to gentrification in their neighborhood, which brought me to my research question. In order to answer my research question, I analyzed existing literature regarding this topic and conducted 7 expert elicitation interviews. There's a relatively small body of literature regarding environmental gentrification, so I was able to learn a lot in a short period of time. I then also conducted interviews with 7 professionals from the Puget Sound region with expertise related to environmental gentrification. Based on both the literature and the interviews, I found 4 overlapping practices recommended to limit environmental gentrification. The findings from my research are general recommendations that are meant to serve more as a broad overview of consideration for different stakeholders when working on projects related to increasing access to green space. I will now go through each one individually. So first, we have intentional community involvement during the park design process. This practice is critical to ensure that the park design is representative of the needs, wants, and identities of the existing community. Not doing so can foster faster gentrification. Next, we have collaboration across city departments. Environmental gentrification is a complex issue that touches on many different aspects of urban planning. Having more collaboration across departments, like the one on this slide, allows for more holistic decision-making. In addition, we also have the joint development of parks and affordable housing. In this slide, you can see examples of different joint development based on different land use. This is important to ensure that affordable housing remains even if gentrification does occur. And finally, we have investments in the neighborhood beyond green space, which are necessary to develop a neighborhood that is stable and can build generational wealth. An example of this that Lake City Collective has implemented is establishing a community center in Little Brook. These findings will hopefully allow Lake City Collective to better navigate conversations and decision-making regarding the Littlebrook Park redesign when working with partners. However, it is important to note that environmental gentrification is a very context-dependent issue, and the practices I presented are more general in nature. So therefore, they may not all be equally relevant to Lake City Collective. Next steps would be to do a deeper analysis of the Littlebrook neighborhood and see which practices would be most successfully implemented there. Yes. And so I would just like to say much gratitude and my most sincere and warmest thanks to Cesar and Peggy Garcia, who were large sources of support from the City Collective, my faculty advisor, Dr. Kenyoka, all the interviewees who took time out of their busy day to talk with me, my Rodina, my family, my friends, the POE and CEP cohorts, and my beloved three-legged dog, Lady. Thank you.
All right, questions for Anya? Any questions from the audience? Yes, Angela.
In reference to your literature review, did you find that the existence of community engagement looked different between neighborhoods of different income or racial demographics?
Yeah, so what sometimes would occur is that there wouldn't be, sometimes what would happen is a city would come in and be like, oh my goodness, this place, there's no green space and we want to increase it either for like a justice or like a climate resilience perspective. So they would just go in and implement a green space. And then what would happen is people in that area would either maybe feel unsafe because now there's this big park that's dark at night and they don't feel comfortable walking around. Or the park has a tennis court when no one there plays tennis. So, and that is more likely to happen in areas that are of lower income and have residents who are have less time to maybe be involved in the park meetings and seek out those opportunities themselves. So that is sort of like examples of what I would see in my literature and hear about in my interviews is like designs being implemented that do more harm than good. So that's why the community involvement is important.
Great, thank you. Other questions for Anya? A question in the back.
What was some of the reasons that they decided to do the park redesign project?
Did you hear that okay?
Yes, I think the question was, what was the reason that Lake City Collective did the park redesign? The reason is because there actually is a new apartment complex that got built across the street from Littlebrook Park. And it is a typical new development, gentrification looking complex. And a lot of the people are dog owners who don't feel a sense of connection to the neighborhood and have started using the park as a dog park, despite all the different families and existing community members who now can no longer use the park because it's become a public health issue. So that was the big reason to create a park that is actually able to be used by the community.
Question back here.
Does part of the new park design accommodate dogs?
Oh yeah. Hazel wants to know.
What was the question? I missed the last part.
The park redesign, does it accommodate dogs? Is there a dog-friendly area?
Yes, it's actually, there is, it's really quite exciting. There's like specific types of like turf that like filter the dog urine and feces so it doesn't smell, and it would be right by the bathroom because there's a bathroom at the park. And there also would be in the design like more increasing of space along the streets so that there's more green space for the dogs to walk. So the dog walkers are being included in the design. Everyone's needed. We'll hope
That's good.
that.
We want to make sure that's happening. Great. Maybe one more question? Yeah, Eli.
Dude, I mean, that was great. But, you know, ultimately, one of the things that happens when this kind of great development happens and there's more green space, and one of the things that drives gentrification then is the increase in home values, right? Which then, you know, people who own homes might want to capitalize by selling their homes. So I'm just curious if there are groups like the Lake City Collective, like, are there ways that they can get involved to help deal with that particular piece of the issue? And yeah.
Yes, I didn't have enough time to touch on it in my 5 minutes, but an interesting thing that some community groups are able to do are invest in community land trusts. There's examples of that already happening in Seattle, like with Africa Town Now. And then by owning the land and ensuring that it can't be sold for for-profit development, they can create affordable housing, but that does take a certain level of capacity building for sure.
All right, well, thank you so much, Anya.